What is up, guys? It's your boy Jim Rat Crypto. Crypto in the evening. I got to change the backdrop so I don't forget. Morning to evening. There we go. Today we have a special guest. He's a streamer of sorts now. You know, he's getting comfortable behind the mic, and we love it. I love it because I just started this randomly, and I like to find guys that just want to talk about really important subjects. And Jack really only likes to bring up stuff that's pretty important and influential. And today we're going to talk about longevity, and that's a pretty broad word. So to me, since I'm 28 years old, it doesn't necessarily mean living long. It's just like more so about enjoying my time on this earth. But with that, there's a lot of parallels. There's a lot of parallels between enjoying your time on this earth and longevity. So let's get into it. People wanted to know about PEDs. There's about 3 or 4 people in my DMs ask Jack what his take on hormone replacement therapy is. And I was like, what's hormone replacement therapy? Oh, wait, we talk about it all the time. Me and Sam have absolutely super in-depth, extensive understanding of hormone replacement therapy, the do's, the don'ts, and what to look for, et cetera, et cetera. So if anyone, Jack, if you want to bring up any of that stuff, we're all about all this stuff, guys. We're going to talk about peptides, longevity, health, crypto in the evening, guys. Let me scroll up here and boom. What up, Jack?
Hey guys.
Yo. Hey, what's good?
How's
Good
it
to see you
going?
again. How are you doing?
You too. I'm doing even better. I got new camera. I got new mic.
Yes.
Funny thing, I never used a mic or a camera before, so it's like the first time having fun with it. Literally nerding out with the audio equipment.
Are you? It sounds like, based upon the activity, it looks like you're enjoying, the additional connections and just interacting and streaming.
Yeah. I guess it's a thing. I mean, I wish I started earlier because COVID and all that. That would have been good time to practice it in the lockdown, right?
Massive uptick in because what are people going to do when they're not outside or doing other stuff?
My suggestion to you, Mr. Jack, is if you would like to do this all the time, considering I believe you have disposable income, I would just hire a producer. That would be, and even if it's one you never see, they'll do everything for you, and then you'll just speak and do your thing.
So a producer. So what does a
Producer would be someone to set up thumbnails, someone to do clips, someone to schedule your stuff, someone to how 8 hours before the stream, it's like pending, and like it's all sitting there. It's kind of just all that stuff. But again, there's just let's talk about something else, guys. But get into it, Sam.
How did you you have this in your profile on Twitter? How deep are you in this, or how did you kind of get into longevity or PE? I mean biohacking or whatever you want to call it, because it goes by a different name depending on what group you're in, kind of thing.
Yeah. So I actually sent you guys a DM with the reason why I started it.
Do you want me to pop it up or no pop it up?
You can pop it up.
Okay.
Cool. We'll read it live.
I'll pull it up in just 10 seconds.
So that was the primary reason why I wanted to get into longevity. So as soon as you guys bring it up, I can make a few comments on.
Cool.
On that.
I've always been interested in the health arena, or fitness and that kind of stuff.
Looking at this picture just makes me laugh every time.
You seem way younger and healthier now, so it's interesting.
So this picture is like 10 years old. So I'm 10 years younger on this picture.
To be fair, you don't look like trash. Like, you don't look like you lost your stuff to I don't know how you were feeling mentally.
I look like a very polished couch potato.
You look like a very.
Your face is a lot thinner now.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like I've been drinking.
So what was it about 10 years ago? You were like, oh man, I need to do something, or just you were
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh
here's
wow, damn! You look like two different completely people. Like if you
Yeah,
put those
there's
up and
mugshot. If those were mugshots, you wouldn't even know which one was which.
yeah.
Like you'd be like,
right. So
you'd
people
be like,
ask me
which
like,
guy's which?
is this your brother or like what's the deal? And so the picture on the right versus the picture on the left. So the picture on the left is like a year ago, and picture on the right is 5 years ago. So the difference is about 4 years. So the left one is 4 years older than the right one.
Wow. Well, you said you started lifting about 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's about
You're
right.
still sharing your
So
screen. I don't know if you want
so
to.
the so the story really was is that actually when I was in Hawaii just 5 years ago, I was hiking up the crater, the Coco Head crater, and it's one of those hikes where you go vertical. So it uses the little railroad that they used to mine, I guess, some sort of rock from the mountain, and now the whole thing was discontinued, and it became kind of like an attraction for people to challenge themselves to climb up the mountain. So it took me 2.5 hours to do it, and every 10 steps, because it was literally at 60 or 70 degrees vertical climb, every 10 steps I had to just chill because my heart rate was going 180. And then I saw a dude who ran with a heavy backpack, and he ran up the same trail. And I asked him, how long does it take him usually? He says 25 minutes. And I'm
I
like,
used I used to live out there and run up that all the time.
yeah. So that's the place actually. So Coco Head Crater. And when he ran up so quickly, and it took me 2.5 hours to do it, I'm like, all right, I'm about the same age as the guy, and I'm incapable of doing any sort of exertion. I'm so out of shape. And then I came home and I took pictures of myself, the ones that you just saw, and I'm like, okay, it's time to do something about my life and get better, get in shape.
And you were in a relationship your whole entire working life for the most part, correct?
I was so
Or
I've been
married?
married for 25 years.
Congrats.
Got married in 1997. Met my wife.
Before you were married, did you have any physical I say before you were married because that's sometimes when guys are experimenting with their bodies and stuff, figuring stuff out, whether they like, were you working out? Were you lifting any weights? Were you, before you had any, like, when you were a single young man?
Not really. I mean, I was extremely skinny, and I was what I thought was in shape. I was just not very strong, and I wasn't fat or anything, but I wasn't like, incredibly fit either. It wasn't on the agenda. I mean, the agenda is make some money, pay off my debt to the university and all the car repairs I had to do. So I didn't really think that fitness was like a primary thing that I should be achieving at like a 21 or 22. So just was not it was not that interesting to me.
Before we get into like the nuanced stuff, what was your mental health like? And I'll let you and Sam wrap back and forth as we get more into like the specifics. But what was your mental health like in general, like comparatively? I guess all you can do is compare. So in general, when you were working, maybe not so in shape, probably eating a little bit here and there, whatever you wanted, what was your mental health like? Did you feel inspired more than you do now? Do you, because generally when you're younger, you're supposed to feel more natural vigor for certain things, but when you work on yourself like you did, sometimes you can have the opposite effect where in the long term you end up feeling much better.
Actually, right now I feel exactly like I felt at 22.
Wow.
So that's uh, the time period between 26 until like 40. I just felt much older. I just felt that I'm definitely aging and I'm slowing down. My skin's getting worse and my sleep is getting worse. I'm weaker. And I'm like, okay, well, that's just obviously the age. It's, catching up. The body's catching up with the age, and there's not much can be done. But right now, I feel like exactly 21, 22 years old. And the funny thing about it is that, so because I am in longevity space and I always like to get feedback on what exactly is happening in my body. So I do my blood work every 6 months. And in the last couple of years, I've been monitoring my testosterone.
Mhm.
And so the last time I measured my testosterone, the doctor, we did a teledoc call, and she said, "Hey, are you on TRT?" I'm like, "No, I'm not on TRT. Why? What's wrong?" And she says, "Your testosterone is very close to 1200, uh, whatever the measure is, millimole per deciliter."
Depending on where you are, but
Right,
yeah.
right, right. And then I said, I'm like, okay, what's the top limit? And she says 900. But that's for somebody who's 25, and you're more like 18-year old. So she's like, okay, you're obviously on TRT, so just tell me. I'm like, not on TRT. I'm just experimenting with the diet. I'm doing some interesting
Smart
things
doctor.
with CrossFit. And at the time, I was on a carnivore diet, so I was eating only animals or anything that's basically used to be
You were
alive.
ripping apart flesh.
Yeah, and actually I came up with a theory why the testosterone moved up. And frankly, maybe it was always high, I don't know, but 1150 or whatever, close to 1200 seems to be definitely on the higher spectrum. And so what I think is happening is that when you eat steak at home, your body does not know that you got the steak at the grocery store. Your body thinks that you actually hunted whole day and killed the animal and then ate it. So what I was doing, I was mimicking a warrior diet combined with a carnivore diet where I don't eat the whole day. So I fast the whole day, and after 5 p.m., I just make myself either salmon or steak, uh, and any or chicken, anything that's basically was alive. And I would supplement with nuts because you have to have good amount of fat for your hormones to work well. And I think that literally put my body in a mode where the T just increased, thinking that if I don't hunt for my food, then I'll just be weak and die. So that's
There's some, there's some very interesting things going on there. Did you see when you were tracking your test over, because if you've been doing it 6 months, did you see an upward trend, or that was kind of at the beginning of the tracking where you switched to the carnivore?
So it moved from 800 to
To
900, and then eventually it topped at 1150.
That's
So
interesting because you're
He could
probably
have been
going
in a
through.
he could have been in a suppressed state as well, potentially, and it kind of
Because you have the meat based portion of things. I'm reading actually a doctor's book right now, the carnivore diet. I don't remember the doctor's name, and he goes on to say about the bioavailability of nutrients from meat is much higher than it is from plants. Have you heard of like anti-nutrients?
absolutely, yeah, and it's totally true. And what happens is that when you combine it with fasting, you're naturally boosting your human growth hormone. And the reason for that, and a lot of people don't realize, is that when you're in a fasted state, your body is preparing to consume any calorie that you can find and actually absorb it in the most efficient way. So that's why your human growth hormone actually increases in concentration, so that when the food comes, it's not ever wasted. So what happens is that when you combine it with the carnivore or like OMAD diet, warrior diet, anything you eat, especially if it's good, high quality nutritional grass-fed protein or fatty fish, it gets straight into like the amino acid uptake that they gets into your cells and just repairs them. So and surprisingly, what I discovered, how everybody talks about like 2,000 calories a day, all that.
Yeah, the
I
baseline.
discovered that like 1,200 or even close to 1,000 is totally reasonable uptake for calories for me, and I feel like it's because there's very little waste that's coming out of my body. Everything's getting absorbed. So like the extra 1,000 calories that I'm not eating would have been just there to be wasted on food processing mechanism itself.
That's
it's another premium of construction work that nobody talks about. The premium that you pay for losing 3,700 calories a day. You know what I mean? Like there is a premium there. I used to build cell phone towers and do all sorts of work, and I don't eat but a third of what I used to eat because I was literally working I was a skinny guy back then too. I was climbing with 40-pound shit on my back up a 300-foot tower every single day. And I needed to eat an absolutely enormous amount just to maintain my size. Now I can eat but a third of that, and I only eat roughly once a day. I might have a snack though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you notice any changes with your lipids at all by any chance during that transition?
Improvement. Actually, improvement.
Which that's a myth. So like, right, because people think, and I'm glad you said this, and I want to hear your story on this, but people think, right, if you eat a lot of meat, your cholesterol has to be fucked up. But you just said, right, you were tracking your shit, and you're like, hey, wait, my lipid panel actually improved.
So here's the thing about cholesterol, and you can find studies that definitely confirm it. So dietary cholesterol does not necessarily make your blood cholesterol worse. The reason is because your liver is the one that produces the cholesterol for your body that your body actually needs to build cell membranes and various other things for the nervous system too. So when people are saying, "Oh, I'm not eating any cholesterol," they're actually telling their liver to secrete more cholesterol to remain in homeostasis. So having eggs that's like supposed to be full of cholesterol is actually could be great diet for somebody who has unstable cholesterol in their blood because it tells the liver to not overproduce cholesterol that's coming in from the diet. Now, the cholesterol that comes from the diet is a little bit different, and actually, liver produces at least 5 or 6 different types of cholesterol. So most of the people, they know about HDL and LDL, and they think that HDL is good and HDL is good and LDL is bad. But the reality is that LDL has at least 5 different subtypes.
Mhm.
It starts what they call low density lipoprotein. And what that is basically a very large molecule that eventually gets condensed and oxidized into the smaller molecule. Now, cholesterol has this key on it, which gives it the body ability to absorb it. So whenever it's oxidized, that sort of keying mechanism that lets your body absorb it actually gets disabled. And what happens to the cholesterol? It starts swimming in your blood and lands on your arterial walls and creates inflammation within your arteries. Now, guess what oxidizes cholesterol?
That was about to be my next question. So, what do you think oxidizes cholesterol?
I'm glad you asked. What oxidizes cholesterol is sugar. Now, this sugar can come from the sugar itself. It could also come from carbs. So anytime you have a piece of bread or just, even a potato, right? So potato is just a bunch of starch, which is sugary molecules that will eventually convert to glucose. If you have too much glucose in your blood and your insulin is unable to take it out of your blood, the cholesterol molecules actually will get oxidized and become high density or the low density part. And there's actually a graphic, you can find it online, the process how cholesterol becomes from a larger molecule into something medium sized and then smaller, smaller, and smaller. And eventually it's oxidized and damaged enough where your body can't even absorb it. So that's what actually causes the cardiovascular disease, not the LDL in the beginning, how it starts.
And it's almost like that's the most toxic or the worst for you is those tiny little particulate, right?
Yeah, because your body doesn't know what to do with it. So it's very similar to industrial oils and seed oils that are made in the lab, essentially. So the canola oils of the world.
Trash.
So your body does not know what to do with it. It tastes like a normal fat or oil, and it tastes good, but then you cannot excrete it for like a month. So it hangs out in your body because your body has no mechanism to process it. So yeah, it's very similar to cholesterol.
That's interesting. So you saw an improvement in, because a lot of times, as you mentioned, you would get the first lipid panel done, and you'll just get like total cholesterol, the LDL, HDL, and triglycerides, and then you can take it a step further and get like the particular size measured and all those kinds of things. So when you did you go far? Like what types of improvements did you see with your lipids?
So first, the ratio of HDL to LDL got better. So in other words,
Which is great.
you want your LDL to be higher, not to be borderline low. And the reason why that is because those molecules actually act in an opposite way versus the oxidized LDL. They actually clear your arteries out from all kinds of stuff. So they're called anti-atherosclerotic or something like that. There's like a very, very long word.
And that's
there's
LDL, you said?
HDL.
Oh, HDL. Okay.
HDL.
Right.
So HDL is what the regular folks, they call it the good cholesterol. You want to be high on that, and you want to be low on LDL. The reality is that your LDL may actually be higher, but it wouldn't be because you're eating it. It would be because what happens is when you're fasting, your body goes into the state of ketosis, and it will take your fat cells and start extracting fatty acids and amino acids from those cells, and your blood work will actually show an increase in the total cholesterol, but it will also show the increase in HDL as well, which is good for you. So it's literally like good for the brain. So your brain actually works better when you have more optimal HDL, LDL.
There's a ratio that the bodybuilders look at between the two. Like they all, because everybody's receptor sensitivity for everything is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But for the LDL and HDL, the really smart guys that I watch, they look for a ratio more individually. Like they're not necessarily like what's your number and your number, but the ratio between the two numbers.
Yeah. So ratio is absolutely the vital thing to look at. And if you ever do a blood test again, ask for APOA versus APOB. So the ratio should be between A and B type should be below 0.8. If that ratio is much higher, then that actually means so like if the B is higher than A and it's over 0.8, then you're having more of the particles in your blood that can cause the heart disease. So APOB versus APOA.
APOB and APOA.
So the A type is good, and you want it to be high, and you don't want your B type to be way too high because that's all of the cholesterol that has been oxidized. So the way to improve that ratio is drop the carbs, drop the sugar, and work out more, essentially. So that will immediately improve the blood work. Like at the very least you can do is just reduce your carb load to like 25 grams per day, and that will immediately improve your cholesterol oxidative rate. So even if you think you have high cholesterol, it's not going to be damaging to your body.
Yeah, because you can always improve if it's the small particulate size or the larger, fluffier type of size of particulate.
Yeah. So you will move the ratio towards the right spectrum by not having glucose in your blood.
Because from my understanding, I was talking to a buddy earlier today about blood sugar levels, right? Because we were talking about sugar and all that, it almost acts as like a toxin. So did you track anything related to, say, blood pressure or related to your glucose levels, or like?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's two ways to measure your glucose. There is the fasting glucose that they measure. They call it a spot measure, and unfortunately, that one does not tell you much. It just tells you how much sugar you have in your blood if you haven't had any food, right? But it doesn't tell you much in terms of what's been happening in the last 3 months. There's another test called A1C, and that test actually reports on the condition of your red blood cells and whether the blood cells have the glycolytic effect, or in other words, do they have sugar oxidation on the cells themselves. Now our red blood cells, they live for about 3 months. So when they do that test, they can come up with a number that's an average glucose in your blood for the last 3 months. That's the important one. So they give you a number at 5.0 versus like 6.0. So anything above 5'8" and 5'9" and creeping up towards 6 is pre-diabetes. And anything that's closer to 5.0 means basically that even if you're having sugar in your life, it's not affecting your cells in any way. So 5.0 on A1C report is an ideal measure, and it basically can be converted to glucose measure of about 80 to 85, which is like really low and nice. Now, what's interesting about the keto diet and in being low on sugar?
Oh, that's sorry to interrupt. So that's interesting. So the average for the 3 months, if it was around a 5, it would be translated to like a spot rate of around 80, 85.
Exactly. So
Interesting.
you want to be measuring your average and not your spot, because one thing that you can test really easily, and it's very interesting experiment. So take the glucose measuring machine, like the one the finger prick thing, and fast it. Take a measure, and you're gonna see that you're about 85, maybe 90. Then go work out hard, like do some squats, like heavy squats, and measure that again right after. You're gonna be at 110. So
Is there some parallel between calorie? Because I get these two. Again, I'm coming from a different framework mentally. I don't really never think about my health necessarily because it's always been okay. But when it comes to a lot of these times, it seems like people's bodies, not us potentially, but the average Joe could just benefit from calorie restriction, period. Like they're just eating too much fucking food. Like I know people that could out eat me from their mother's meal with a big pita bread and 9 eggs and all this stuff. They eat it every morning for years and years and years on end. And then they want to know why they're lazy during the day.
So 80% of the people they eat for the mouth pleasure. Like they love their pizza and they love their bread and they have their
That's
favorite.
what weed is
Like,
for, Jack. That's what
I'm
weed
sorry, what?
is for. That's what
That's
weed's for. You eat to get shredded, and you smoke weed if you need to relax. But I don't like to bring the food to the relaxation piece together.
okay. Well, weed actually makes you hungry. No.
I might have surpassed that mark. I might have outsmoked that smoking calibration. No, but
Right.
I don't I was just joking about that, but I never have had that relationship with food ever. It's been like, Scott, you can be a better person and more girls will like you if you eat the white chicken rather than this stuff. And I just always have stuck to that. It's always been a job to me. Eating has always been a job.
So you're saying you're not gonna like love this new ice cream that's
I would feel more upset with myself and anxious because I ate it.
Oh really? What if it was keto ice cream without sugar?
I wouldn't want to eat it just because. Well, I mean, at this weight I could, but if I had a goal in mind, like right now, I could eat 3 things of ice cream and nothing would change. But in general, I'm a very structured person, so it's like I don't like to switch things up. That's just me, though. I'm also from the bodybuilding realm where we do the exact same thing every day, and with a smile on our face. We like to do the same thing. I like to do this. I like predictability.
Yeah. I
But
totally
again,
get it.
the average world is just stuck by dopamine insurging, video games, leverage trading, eating whatever they can. We've all been there.
80% of the people, they just eat because they love eating, and that's it. And that makes them lazy because when you eat all the time, you're actually training your body not ever to lose weight, because the cells are conditioned to absorb but not to release any nutrients. And so when you go onto a keto diet or have some sort of structured meal plan, you actually will train your body to extract calories from the deposits that your body has, which is how the body meant to be. So that's why I feel like the OMAD diet, or 1 meal a day, is actually the optimal diet, is because you're spending most of your time in training your body to extract the nutrients, and then you're giving the meal when you have the high human growth hormone, you have your high testosterone, and you're not actually overeating and wasting food by just excreting it or spending energy to process it in your body. So
You had just mentioned, or you were starting to get into HbA1c and checking the spot rate, or like pricking your finger type of thing for your glucose, and the effect that the carnivore diet had on your your HbA1c measure over time. And you were about to get into something on that, and I was curious where you were going with that.
So here's the thing. So when you do heavy squats fasted and your glucose was low 5 minutes ago and now it's 110, what do you think happened? Where'd you get the sugar? So what happened is that when you give your body a signal to lift something heavy, you release a lot of adrenaline and epinephrine, and that has an effect on your liver to release glycogen and to give your body's energy to burn, which is basically sugar molecules. So what I'm saying
is it pulling you're pulling your glycogen from your stores in your muscles?
First it's the liver. So the liver stores about like maybe 50%, maybe 60 or 70% of the total glycogen, and the rest. Yeah, it's pretty. So liver processes most of the sugars that are coming in, like especially if it's fructose, and it ends up storing a lot of it. So the fastest way to extract glycogen is from the liver first, because it's an organ, right? And then it's your muscles. But muscles are actually powered by both glycogen and fatty acids, so the fats. And if you train yourself to work out fasted, you will end up stimulating a way to retrieve energy from the fat molecules as well as the sugar molecules.
Do you do that, Sam? Because I do that. I don't do that because of any reason other than time efficiency, and it's kind of what my body seems to like to do. Like once you get into it, you kind of feel what your body enjoys. I have never had a problem with energy at the gym, and I go to the gym roughly after the show. I do an hour of work, so I'm at the gym at 3 or 4:30. Between 3 and 4:30, I'll show up to the gym. I have not eaten a thing all day long, and I'm 165 pounds. You know what I mean? So it's not. And I lift heavy as well, compared to the average person. But you know what I mean? Like I lift a lot of weights.
You also really like the OMAD, or like eating one meal a day, or like fasting majority of the day and having, maybe a couple meals or a small window of feeding in there, which is interesting.
Cheaper.
It is.
Well, there's this concept called rest and digest, right? So you don't want to be resting and digesting when you're lifting heavy. So it just doesn't make sense. So if I were somebody's personal trainer, I would say, listen, you may be a little hungry, you may be somewhat uncomfortable to begin with, and you may not feel like lifting heavy weights. But when you practice this and your body adapts to that, it's actually great for longevity, because you will eventually get stronger, but you'll be stronger from the proper mode of operation of what your body meant to do.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and evolutionary, it actually makes sense. I mean, think about it. Let's say that there's no Whole Foods or like Safeway nearby, right? What are you going to do? You're going to go hunt. You're going to go to the forest and you're going to track animals and try to eat them. And for that, you need to be in the optimal performance mode in your body. So you have nothing in your stomach. You're full of adrenaline. You're full of epinephrine, and you're there hunting, right? And so everything from coordination to strength supposed to be optimized. And then once you actually get something to eat, you can rest and digest and repair your body and be ready for the hunt of the next day.
There's a podcast I was listening to a couple of days ago, this doctor, where she
must have been good if you were listening to it. You don't listen to much.
Correct. And so she was talking about under muscled. So we don't have an obesity problem. Her thing is we have an under muscle problem in America, in the world in general, where
visceral.
Yeah. Just muscle. Just there's a lot of people, they're not like
muscle mass.
Muscle mass, like the actual lean tissue. And that's her thing. And a lot of times people are just, obviously their diet's effed up, but under muscled. And I thought that was a very interesting take. And she was presenting things in the sense that, like, right, because your liver's an organ, right, and your skin is an organ, but when you think about it as a whole, or more of like putting things together into groups, your muscle is like your largest organ, and that's going to be able to pull like stores for your glycogen, right? It's going to pull your glucose and then it's going to be glycogen, and it's going to store in your muscle there. And there's so many like issues related with blood sugar, whether it is diabetes or what.
Oh my God, blood sugar. You could go all day long with insulin sensitivity and blood sugar because
Yeah.
it's like people have no clue when they're eating those Twinkies in the morning and they're not going to eat for another 5 hours and then they get sleepy, stuff like that. I have one question that was just on my mind. I want to ask both of you because this is a question that comes up in my mind a lot. And this is just how I think. The organs that I have in my body have a certain lifespan, period. If I use them less in my brain, I've always felt like this. If Richard Hart has 360,000 revolutions of food through his body and I only have 120,000 in my whole life, whose body will be less affected? That's just something I always assume, but it couldn't potentially not be the truth either. Like, because Sam's body, for example, does so many repetitions of food comparatively to mine.
You're like, he's
You
going to
think
die
that that those extra reps break down because it's something about just eating less just seems to keep you going longer.
Well, I actually have a pretty good answer to that. So it's not how much you, or how many times you ate. It's more like the calories that you have given your body that you haven't used. And so what happens is that when you don't use the calories, your body goes into what they would call cell division mode. So it comes from basically like the ancient bacteria that or ancient cells that were dividing in the primordial soup or whatnot. And when the times are good, you're dividing. When the times are bad, you're repairing. So we have the same mechanism in our bodies. So when we have calorie restriction, whether it's from not eating for the whole day and then eating at the end of the day, or working out, we actually spend calories too. So when the calorie balance is towards the deficit, the cells in your body that need repair actually get repaired, and the cells in your body that need removal or recycling, they get recycled through a process called autophagy. So that's a natural like mammalian thing that like pretty much all living things have. And so when you
Assuming that most of our ancestors did not have a streamlined supply of food all day long into their stomachs.
Yeah, I mean, well, think about it. When you're continuously feeding yourself, your body has no choice but to make new cells, and the more you make your new cells,
Is that how cancer comes about?
the cancer comes about from way too many divisions of the cells, and cells forget what they are and they stop functioning. So, like specifically with cancer, the cellular death that's programmed on a gene level gets disrupted, and cells do not get recognized that they need to be killed by the body, or they don't have the self-termination script.
There's like inside of the DNA or like the genes or whatever, we have apoptosis, which is like that programmed cell death. And if
that's what they call.
If you have the proliferation or like, creating new cells perpetually. You had mentioned at certain states you're creating and at other states you're recycling. Can you repeat?
Yeah. So when you have an excess of calories, now this could be simply because you're sitting on your couch all day and you're not spending enough calories because your muscle mass is low. And even if you're eating at 15 calories a day, but you're not moving and you're having sedentary lifestyle, you will still be in a rest and digest mode and cell division mode. Now, every time a cell divides, there is a chance that there's an error in that cell. So the more cells you produce and grow in your body, the more damage you accumulate. And what happens is that it's like a VHS tape being copied over and over and over again until you see nothing that actually even resembles the movie or like the sound goes. So a copy of a copy is never great. So
that sounds like crypto, and now it sounds like you're talking about like Binance or something. Like, like the more that you add on to something, the more critical failures you can have within it. And I mean, that's the same thing with crypto. What do we see about all these algorithmic stable coins that have a lot of push and pull points? They don't work.
Yeah, leverage on top of leverage. That's what it is. So in the on the cellular level, it's very, very similar. You want your body to be mostly in the cell recycling mode, mostly, because the body will eventually reach the equilibrium where the total number of cells that you have are of optimal size and of optimal count. So and anytime your cells are damaged due to, like, for example, sun damage or some other like oxidative stress, they are tagged with what they call a phosphate group. That's basically like a hashtag on a cell that says kill me. Kill me next time I don't have enough food or I'm working out. If I need energy, that is the cell to destroy, because we don't want to copy that cell.
And sometimes that, as you go through, and if you were, say, perpetually in a state, or on average over some period of time in a state of surplus for your calories and garbage calories, and you're creating these new cells, right?
Garbage, understatement. Garbage that people eat these days. Garbage. It's like, compared to what Sam eats, like, it's people go to McDonald's all day long and stuff. I just can't believe it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, right? Like it's pretty funny. Well, so that proliferation, that growth of new cells, like that hashtag at some point could like be damaged, and what happens is if it's damaged, then it can't like program itself to die, right? Like it would be like the code being fucked up in hex in some way where everybody's it works, but every like 1,000th person, they just can't pull the money
Celsius,
out.
not hex. Say Celsius, not hex, bro.
So literally what may happen is that the cell forgets its function. So a liver cell may think it's a skin cell, and it will not function as a liver cell. So you're gonna get
too much improper input, like too much excess input.
It's like you broke an arm. You just can't function.
No, what happens is that a copy of a copy of a copy has less of a longevity in itself to properly function.
So you're saying it's less close to the homeostatic cell.
It's less close to its original stem cell that it came from. So you're literally having cells that are old and they're malfunctioning. So like for example, people get gray hair, and the reason why people get gray hair is because the cells that are responsible for the color of the hair actually get damaged, and they forget that they need to color it. So that is one of the ways that the age shows up.
This has just made me think of this, but have you heard of melanotan too? It's a peptide that changes the melanin. So it was first developed, I think, at the University of Arizona. There's like melanotan 1, and they're like, hire these guys to do this, and then they actually developed something else, and then there was a lawsuit and all this shit. But anyways, it came out of the University of Arizona, and it changes melanin in your skin. And so in cosmetics or like bodybuilding, right? Bodybuilding, we use it for tanning before they're going on a show. There's a lot of women that use it for tanning from a cosmetic standpoint, or they're also men too. But one of the things is that there's like melanocyte receptors. I think there's 5 of them or something like that, and it binds to these receptors. One of those receptors' responsibility is affecting like the melanin in skin. Another is affecting the melanin in hair. And so on Reddit and stuff like that, because they're not necessarily doing some of the research that like on humans, right? Or like some of the crazier shit that you and I might test on ourselves, like, and then we'll just put it online and be like, hey, I tested this. This is what I got. Like, don't fucking do what I do, but this is what happened when I did it. Right. And they're reporting like their hair is changing color. Right. So I thought that you were mentioning about how those cells responsible for, but like, hey, Sam, you have dark brown hair. Let's color that shit. And now it's hard to tell, but it's like all white around here. And, I shave my head, but it's basically all white on the sides because the hair, those cells are just not doing that job anymore.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So basically, I think the bottom line is that most of the studies that they have done on the calorie restriction diets and all kinds of calorie restriction methods basically confirm that you will end up living 20 to 30% longer. Now, that's not just living longer and being sick. That's actually being healthy longer. So health span, not necessarily just the lifespan.
It's like a cell degradation, almost like.
That's not just living
longer. There's an echo there.
Yeah. So it's basically where your body, it's like a CD that's getting, or like a compact disc that's getting too many scratches, or your like DVD and it's getting errors. You can no longer hear the proper sound. So it's the same way with the cell functions. So if you're continuously giving yourself calories, your body has no reason to repair itself, like no reason at all.
So how do you incorporate these learnings in a lifestyle? Because I don't even want to call it a diet, because in most people's minds they say diet and that's a temporary thing. Where how do you incorporate some of these things in a lifestyle? So for me, like a year ago, or maybe a little bit longer than a year ago, I started fasting like for 24 hours on once a month. That was how I started. Did that for 8-10 months or something, and now I'm doing one meal a day, or on Sunday it will be like one meal, and maybe I have a tiny snack like later on in the evening, but I'll start fasting after my last meal on, say, a Saturday night, and then by Sunday night I'll have dinner, and that'll be it. And I'm doing that every
Also,
week.
fair to reference that you're 230 pounds of muscle. Like it's
Well,
like your body is different. Like your strategy might be different. If you didn't, you might go longer. I would say you would probably go longer if your body type was a hair different. But like you carry a
correct.
lot of mass and you have a lot of muscle. So like I can only imagine you get to that point where you're just losing mass. What is that point for you? Like if you were just to feel yourself not eat, like for me, it's like that day 3 point, day 2.5, where like I can tell my frame's going to start losing a little mass. What about you? Like how many days have you gone where the point where you're like, okay, this is almost counterproductive? We are bodybuilders though, for reference.
Well, like I feel very depleted now, because I'm going through this cut, right? Like I'm down nearly probably 20 pounds at this point, from 70 days ago, and I'm primarily doing carnivore and fruit at this point. But I do feel depleted at this point. When you're in the bodybuilding, or like not that I compete, or I just enjoy like training a lot and building muscle, you are more hyper aware of how you may look or in the gym, whether you have glycogen stores or whether you don't have glycogen stores, and the pump you have in the gym. So lately, over the last like 2 weeks or so, I've been much more aware of that, but I'm enjoying the process. Even I don't feel deprived. Like I feel a little hungry now, but I don't like. It's not like, oh, it's killing me or anything like that. It's actually kind of nice. The first several weeks, or the first 45 days, I was like, felt like there was an increase in productivity. Maybe because I was more focused, because I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for 90 days. But also, it could have just been because I was going through a surplus period of time, and now I'm going through a deficit period of time, going through that. But I want to hear what are you like? How do you incorporate this into your lifestyle today?
So I'm glad you mentioned clarity. So the really interesting thing about fasting and clarity of the mind is that a lot of people feel like they're thinking, and overall productivity and creativity is improving. Now, the reason why that happens is because when you're not resting and digesting, you actually have the focusing hormones in your body that's focusing on the tasks at hand. So like specifically when the calories are low, you need to get more calories. So your adrenaline is in your blood, and it's a focusing hormone. So the other thing that happens is the ketones that are getting produced by fat oxidation when your body is searching for calories and retrieving energy from the fat cells. The ketone bodies are actually used as an energy fuel for the brain, and ketones specifically is more of a clean energy for the mind. And one of the interesting things about them is that they carry an oxygen molecule. So your brain and your body is actually getting more oxygenation when you have ketones in your blood. So you can get keto mojo, little meter, and anytime you do fasting, you can measure how many millimoles of ketones you have. Anything at 1.0 and higher on the ketone scale, you will actually feel like you're thinking clear because of the combination of adrenaline and ketones. The thing that I discovered for myself is that when I switched to the keto diet, I was able to do more endurance based exercises. Like I was doing rowing, and my heart rate was not increasing. So I was going really fast for 1,000 meters, and usually my heart rate would be way above 140, and now it was at 130, and I felt like I could go faster. And so the difference was that the muscle in your heart, muscles in your heart are not getting stimulated because you're getting enough oxygen through ketone bodies oxygenating your brain.
Wow, that's fascinating the way you put that together, because if right, one of the ways you feel like you need more oxygen, which means your heart's going to work harder to pump oxygenated blood throughout your freaking body. But if
Yeah.
you're using, you're tilted more towards the ketone side of utilizing that as energy, and there's the oxygen molecule on there. Very, very fascinating. Very, very fascinating stuff.
I have
Yeah.
a question about for both of you guys. Like at this part of my life, I just want to learn how to be as focused as possible, right? I've never had a really good time with the focusing aspect of it when I was doing jobs that I didn't necessarily like. It's not so bad anymore. You guys, Jack, you were super efficient in your field, like as you were going up. How did you go through the day to day? Maybe before you had some of this insight knowledge and now of like, how do you kind of monitor yourself when you're falling? Because I can only imagine if you're anything like me, a human, like you fall off a little bit, right? You
Yeah.
lose a little bit of that motivation, that drive to maybe get your girl flowers or double down on that white paper or do this, that, and the other. Where do you kind of go to get some of that extra push when you
So
push?
that actually leads into like the discussion of dopamine. So dopamine is a signaling a neurotransmitter that basically presents you with the drive to specifically to enjoy harder things. So you're more receptive to doing like heavy squats when you have more dopamine, like, and you feel like you're not getting tired. And the ability to absorb and signal your body with dopamine actually is the highest during the first half of the day. So during the first half of the day, you can make yourself do more things that your mind and your body may be necessarily resisting. And there's almost, I would say, like a dopaminergic battery that will be exhausted by the end of the day, depending on what the difficulty of the task you're doing in the beginning of the day. So I would say, whatever you do, always know that you have limited uh, amount of time to be receptive to dopamine throughout the day, where you feel the motivation to get anything done. So if in the end of the day you're like, you know, you're not feeling motivated and you don't want to do anything, just know that you're gonna be okay in the morning, and just like really not spend your time forcing yourself.
I want to ask Sam the same question too, like because I don't think I've ever actually asked. I mean, me and Sam have talked to each other for many, many mornings consecutively. I tell everyone I am electric in the morning. I could be the president of the United States in the morning. I swear. Like I feel jacked up. I feel locked in. I feel every day. I've always felt the same way ever since I was a kid. My girlfriends always hate it because I wake up early and I'm jazzed up. You know what I mean? I'm ready to go. Sam, what's your kind of like, and I want to cut it back to the dopamine because, and to hedonism too, like searching for dopamine, right? Like there's two types of dopamine. Like you're talking about being involved in work. And then there's actually the things that many guys, I'd say like a good majority of guys actually seek out. They go out of their way. So they leave their space of work. They seek out video games, leverage, sexual partners, stuff like this. And I've had these problems endlessly in my life, endlessly, where I just seek it. So Sam, I wanted to switch to you and kind of give us your kind of in and out on that.
And maybe Jack has done, or, can see this more from a medical side of things. But the way I see, given that I have a context on where you're coming from on this thing, I see the ability to focus similar to, say, the ability to be creative as a muscle, right? So the more you go through and flex that muscle of focus, you're able to grow that over time so that you can have like laser focus. It might not necessarily be, as Jack was saying, it's not going to last you all day, but during that time, you get done more than you'd get done in 3 days 6 months ago or 2 years ago or whatever the case is, because you're able to flex this level of focus to be able to knock things out. And if you work on doing that little bit every day, just like if you go to the gym, you start at 135 pounds on the bench, right? Over the course of some period of time, given the amount of effort you're putting into there, you're able to increase your bench over time because you're able to build your triceps and shoulders and chest and everything along the way. I don't know, it seems to work also it works for like everything, like creativity, right? If you want to be more creative, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm writing down in my journal when I'm writing down my goals and whatnot, like just what are some ideas that I have just to flex that muscle of creativity. Jack, is there like any data you've seen that kind of like points in that direction? Because it's experience, right? Like it's hard to measure experience, but that experience of executing or focusing or being creative is able to expand and like proliferate just like cells would as time goes on. And I don't know of a better way of articulating that, but it seems to, at least for my life, right? And it seems with other people in my life that I've seen go through that, they're able to expand on that as they continue to execute on whatever that might be over time.
So the interesting part about it is that you can ride the wave of creativity and drive by delaying gratification. So in other words, if you never reach the gratification or like never reach the end of the journey, then you can always continue to do harder things. But as soon as you like get some sort of reward and you're like, okay, I'm done, then what happens is that your baseline for the dopamine satisfaction changes, and then it will be very difficult to get the same sort of drive again. So the idea is that you want, when you reach your goals, just say, okay, that was great, but here's my next goal.
This is literally what I was telling him this morning. Was that this morning I was saying this?
Yeah, I'm the kind of guy that gets depressed when I reach my goal. I go into the corner and I suck my thumb and I'm like, man, I wish I still had a goal.
Yeah. So
And like it's just an ongoing process for me to keep pushing, but I fall less far off the track every time I fall off the track, if you know what I mean. Like I used to reach a goal, let's say like back in the day, it was probably like, oh, I had this girl I really wanted to talk to, like back when I was in college or something, and she liked me and it was like perfect. And then the day that she liked me, I was like, wait, I don't have to hunt for her anymore. You know what I mean? And I get that release and that's something I've had to work through a lot. Like I'm very like dopamine driven, but I've realized through my hedonistic ways that I have a battery. Like I have a battery. And now that I'm effective in my work, I have to use that battery effectively. You know what I mean? I didn't know before I could run on any drugs and shit.
So everybody's different, and it's actually part of everybody's physiology. One of the ways that specifically for yourself, what you could do is set smaller goals. So you will have more frequent but less satisfying achievements, so that you can continue to achieve. So like literally, like the next day you're gonna say, this 1 hour I'm gonna dedicate it to this task. I know this hour is not enough. You need to spend like 16 hours, but you will get that, mark it down as done, and just move on. So you will make your mind always chase the motivation without working so hard, achieving something, getting this ultimate reward, and then stopping doing everything altogether. So that is one way that you can modify your behavior to be always driven to do things. Now, one thing I wanted to mention is that everybody's different. And a number of years ago, the scientists discovered this thing called the cheating gene. They discovered that certain males just love being hedonistic and changing sex partners and literally cheating on everybody. And that gene is called DRD4. It is responsible for the body's ability to satisfy the dopamine receptor network. And it's what they call a polymorphism, where there is a mutation that has one of the letters in GATACA, so Gattaca, whatever it's called. So one of those T's and A's are flipped, and you never feel satisfied in what you're doing. So you're always seeking stronger and stronger stimulation, with anything. So like people who are cheating, they're also loving jumping off a plane on a parachute. Right.
Do you think that that's a little bit in a lot of people who have like A personalities, just like not necessarily on the women's side of things, right? But I mean, you probably still want to achieve a lot of shit in your life, and you've already achieved a lot of shit in your life.
Sure. I mean, so what they're discovering is that the gene mutations in our bodies are actually responsible for most of the drive for particular behavior.
Huh.
So
I act just like my dad does, dude. I act the same way my dad does. I swear to the exact T, like work wise.
So I just DM'd you the little preamble of what the gene is, and you can read more about it. But basically, is that there are certain people, type A personality, whatever. It doesn't matter. Point is that the genes actually dictate our behavior, and if we discover that that is the case, and you can do gene study on yourself with 23andMe, you can actually model your life and your behavior to achieve optimal roadmap for yourself, and know your strengths and your weaknesses and how to work with your own genes to be more effective human.
This is fascinating. I wanted to ask you, change it slightly around this topic, but somebody had mentioned liver, which made me think more about consuming when you're doing carnivore, right? So I eat raw liver because it's just really good for me, and I'm just mentally twisted so that now I do it.
I just had some liver yesterday. That was
okay. Okay, so awesome. That's great to hear, because a lot of people look at me and they're like, "Sam, you're fucking weird, right?" You,
weird.
I am weird. You're absolutely correct. There are some, I think it's called radio isotope tracing or something along those lines, where when you get injected away with maybe like a dye of some sort, and they're like, "We're going to scan this to see where this dye is moving in the tissue in your body or your blood." Well, they've done this for different organs, right? So when you actually consume certain organs or tissue from a cow or whatever the case is, you would think that okay, I'm eating the liver, right? That's going to go throughout and feed my whole entire body, which is accurate. But there's also an element that if you're eating other parts, like say spleen or liver or heart, that some of the nutrients are actually, they have a selectivity towards the same tissue in your body, which I found very interesting. And I wanted to ask you if you take that whole animal type of an approach to things, because I'm working in that direction of adding in all the other pieces to it. And when you put on that, I'm like, that's fascinating, because if you think about just eating muscle tissue, as in a cow or chicken, you know what I mean, or fish kind of stuff, versus eating all the organs. And if there's some evidence out there that shows eating all the organs can actually have some of the nutrients are going to go specifically to the same organ in my body, I mean, that's kind of enough of a reason right there for me to at least incorporate it in my life in some fashion. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, or if you do that kind of stuff.
So my 2 cents on that is that the protein is protein, no matter what. On a molecular level, it is what it is. So the difference between, for example, consuming whey protein and consuming protein from meat or from organs is something like that. So it takes, I think they call it thermogenic effect. So ability to absorb whey protein is super simple for the body. However, if you have a steak, actually to convert and extract nutrients from that matrix where the protein is, it takes a lot of energy. So you're almost like giving your body a workout by eating something that's natural, which is actually good for you, because you're absorbing less calories, and ultimately you're working to get those amino acids out. When you're having organs, and so Paul Saladino. The funny thing is that last name is Saladino, but he's all about being carnivore. So I just DM'd the website that has the supplements. What he does, he takes.
Can you send that to me, GRC? Sorry, go ahead, Jack. I'm
Yeah. Just send it to yourself. So what he does, he takes he produced a supplement that is basically a capsule that's kidneys, liver, maybe has a
Lean
tail in
heart,
it,
all this stuff.
like or heart, and it's all in a capsule form. And the story behind it is that it carries a lot more nutrients than like a regular lean meat would have. And actually, I would not necessarily recommend eating super lean. You definitely need to have fat with your meals, because it's just great for your hormones. But eating organs, like specifically liver, is great for you because it's a great source of choline, where the rest of the type of cuts that you would be consuming from, like, prime rib or whatnot, will not necessarily have as much of the concentration. So you want the minerals that the organs have absorbed to function properly, because liver does this one function, heart has this one other function, where a prime rib is entirely something different. So consuming not just organs, not just lean cuts, but also the connective tissue that has a lot of collagen, is the optimal diet for a human that's consuming animal products.
Especially if you're low calorie. Like if you're staying low calorie, you got to find your way to some of those nutrients. Like do not stay low calorie on chicken thigh and chicken breast.
Exactly.
You'll just get wrecked, because you will literally feel your hormone profile sinking into itself, because you will have no fluid movement whatsoever.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's for sure is the case. So I would say your diet needs to be balanced and not very specific to, like, chicken breast or anything like that. I mean, even having chicken thighs is better than just chicken breast.
I eat a lot of steak. I am not going to play any games with anyone. Like I'd probably eat a big steak every night, like if I could. Now, right now, to be honest, like I'm not even playing. Steak is so expensive compared to what it used to be that I have deferred a couple times more than I would like to. But I something about eating steak really just works with me, especially on the days where I only eat steak, which is probably a few days out of the week, or like maybe a day or two out of the week. Like those days, I feel like I get my most work done.
So when you eat it, how do you prepare it?
Medium rare, just I go 500 on the grill, and I just do 3.5 quarter turn, flip, 3.5 quarter turn, flip.
Okay, so if you love your steak, I would advise that you bake it. Do not grill it as much. And the reason is that whenever anything turns brown, so you know how you leave you will leave the red meat on the table and it starts to get brownish color. So that's oxidation. It's the same thing happens to an apple that you take a bite of and it's turning brown. So the brown color signifies that there's a molecular change, and when you cook it on the grill and you have this surface that is full of oxidized protein, the load that it's producing on your body actually is very oxidative as well. So one of the best ways to prepare the steak for longevity is baking it at low temperature. And when I say low
So
temperature,
you're keeping the outside less brown, but you're cooking it a little more fully.
actually cooking it fully does not really mean that you're cooking it fully. What it means is
You're
that
just trying not to kill,
you're
or
not
like
burning the surface area. That's what it
Yeah.
means. So if you can air dry it, or have like one of those like air cookers, then that's the most optimal way. But you don't get very tasty meat from that. So what I do is I marinate it, and that actually the marinade will reduce your meat's susceptibility to oxidize when the heat is applied. So if you
Oh,
marinate
that's
it
interesting.
so if you marinate it for 12 to 24 hours, like put it in a Ziploc bag with marinade, that it's actually better for you because it will not be as reactive to the heat.
That's interesting. I enjoy marinade, but the preparation process I don't enjoy. So I just cook it. I had
It's pretty simple. You take your steak, put it in a Ziploc bag, open up a can of marinade, dump it there, close it, put it in your fridge. It's done in 12
And
hours.
you're good.
24
And
hours.
also, depending on what marinade is used, it works as a tenderizer too, so
Yeah,
the cut tastes better a lot of the times as
yeah.
well.
Overall, it would taste better. I would just avoid the ones with the sugar in them. So just have something without sugar. Um, anything that's peppery is amazing.
You like Worcestershire sauce? You ever had?
I like it. I like it.
I don't know if there's a lot of sugar in that.
I don't think there is anything actually, but
I
there
think
may
it's
be
just-
some other crap that you don't need.
We don't look at that part, Jack.
This,
No, I'm not there yet. All right, I'm not there. No, I'm just kidding. I am getting there though. The more awareness that I have over, I mean, I'm 28 years old. When I go to the gym really hard, it hurts now a little bit, and when I overexert myself, I can tell now. Where before I could never tell. So I'm trying to be more consciously aware of everything that goes on. But it is hard when you never had any health problems ever or of any sort.
but just understanding some of the, or like paying attention to this stuff and asking some of these things, like you're in a much better place than I was in at 28, and I would bet that Jack would agree that like understanding or at least starting to think about these things and make tiny little changes puts you in a really good spot to like grasp some of these things, because at 28, like, I was focused on the fitness stuff, but there was a lot of other things. Like we were talking about chicken, right? And at 28, maybe I was 25 or something like that, but I was eating chicken and broccoli. I was like, cool, I'm going to cut. So,
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of a lot of this stuff as well back then. And the information, 15 years ago wasn't what it is today in terms of the proliferation of information just on the web. And I'm eating chicken and broccoli or chicken and peas. And then I'm getting really, really lean, right? And I'm looking really good. I'm living in Hawaii, so I got a really good tan. I'm the leanest I've ever been, and I feel like shit, and I feel like garbage. My office was right next to somebody else's office. My digestion was horrible. I'd eat chicken and broccoli, and you're like, okay, those are two. Well, chicken's relatively easy to digest, right? And if you steam the broccoli, it's relatively easy to digest. And I felt like crap. I would fart, and the office around the corner could literally smell how bad it was. And because I was so lacking in so many different micronutrients, I'm just eating chicken. I'm not having chicken thighs, not having other cuts of meat. I had no idea
And
what.
then the
that was.
bodybuilders tell you the farts are good. They'll tell you, that's the way it should be. This is the way it should be. You should be. And I remember I would drink a whole carton of egg whites every single morning when I woke up. A carton, like 100 grams of protein is the first thing I did in the morning. And I never knew why my stomach hurt so goddamn bad. Every day of my life was like a terror, but I swore that I needed every gram of protein because that's what they told me in the book. And I don't even eat a half of that protein anymore that I do. And I definitely have lost some muscle off my frame, but not as much as you would have assumed. But again, I am on it. Again, Jack, just for reference, me and Sam both take hormone replacement therapy.
Yes, but
which is fringy and not necessary.
What are your thoughts on hormone replacement or hormone optimization?
So I think my take on it is that if you can achieve it naturally, then you should, because likely whatever the drugs are that stimulate or make your body believe that you have more hormone actually has an effect on the body turning off the production.
Correct.
To me, like for example, melatonin, like some people love taking it. The problem is that it's a synthetic hormone that actually will turn off the melatonin that your body naturally produces. So you will not be getting any sleep later, right? So I believe the same thing can happen with TRT. And there's all kinds of things that you're gonna get man boobs because your body is like completely out of whack. Fat deposits where you're not supposed to have. So I would say that if you can find ways to stimulate it naturally, then you should. And also, here's the thing. That's what a lot of people don't realize. So having a lot of testosterone in your blood is just one side of the coin. Your body actually supposed to be optimal in its ability to be sensitive to it. So free testosterone in itself does not mean that you're optimal for muscle growth and all that. So
I think there is a big misconception between optimization and muscle gain benefits. Like, so there's like cognitive, because I've been through both spectrums, right? I've taken too much and I've taken too little as I was experimenting with it, because I was a bodybuilder and that's just what everyone was doing, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's a very nuanced learning thing, and it can only be done properly by people that take very specific notes on everything in their life. And I tell people the risk factors are generally for those who are genetically predisposed to have some of those androgenic failures within themselves. Like, I know people that if there's a steroid in the same room as them, all their hair is going to come out, literally, because their hair is on the fringe of coming out anyway. I could do every single steroid that was ever made and my hair would not go anywhere, and I would never have to guess it because I have zero predisposition to androgenic alopecia. So it's very like nuanced. Like, there is nothing in this world that could give me man boobs just because I have zero predisposition to some of those androgenic effects. But if you see one of those really pale guys who has a little bit of skinny fat and his hair's coming out, I could promise you the second that he takes testosterone, he's going to have man boobs. So one of the parts is just like genetic predisposition and like sensitivity of your hormones. But yes.
Yeah, I'm sure I could make something up to that will give you man boobs. I'm sure it's possible.
You can try, man. I tried. Trust me. Yeah, I gave it a good shot.
So man boobs actually is a reaction where you have too much estrogen. So the estrogen is used as a buffer for T. So when you have too much T in your blood, your estrogen comes up to buffer it out. And then you stop taking T or you get adjusted. You have way too much estrogen that actually converts your body type to more of a feminine aspects, and you start developing breast tissue, right, or fatty tissue where we're not supposed to.
But it's fair to say that I know many teenagers that also, if you go to the local pool, like there's many 13 and 14-year-old guys that have full-blown gynecomastia due to their horrible habits that their parents have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
have you seen it? Have you gone to the pool and seen little kids, not on steroids?
Yeah. I've seen it. Triangular boobs, right? Triangular.
Yeah,
boobs.
They're like real boobs.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I mean, like, your body has only so much surface area to store your fat, right?
Yeah.
And what's really amazing about fat specifically is actually it has this thing called aromatase process that will take your testosterone and convert it to estrogen. So the more fat you have, the less lean you are, the more susceptible you are to having more estrogen in your body. And the evolutionary program for that is something like this. Whenever you're fat, that means you have excess of calories. That means you don't need to hunt, and you should actually get rid of all your muscle and stay in your cave and live off your fat, essentially. So there's like no reason to have testosterone. Your testosterone gets down, your estrogen increases, and you're in a fat accumulation phase. Like, for example, summertime, where like the game and the hunting is good, so you're fattening up. Now, if you're a hunter in the village and that's all you do all day, then your body optimizes for the high T, right? And all women in the village love you because you can provide. So
yeah, it's interesting. My mom, she's I think 71 or 72, has been going through a lot of stuff over the last couple of years, and she's been feeling so lethargic that we talk once or so a week, and finally got her to go get her hormones done. And her testosterone, she didn't share it with me, but her testosterone was extremely low, so that now she's working with her doctor and on testosterone cream because there's a lot of issues related to that, plus her thyroid, right? Because there's different pieces in your thyroid that you want to check, not just like your free T or your T3 or whatever, but other pieces of it. And she's starting to finally feel better on like, she's like, she's been going to a holistic doctor for, 2 years or thereabouts, with a lot of supplementation and changing her diet up completely. And not like one of those people who says like, oh yeah, I'm doing this in my diet, and then you like ask them actual questions, and they're like not even slightly changing their diet or their supplementation.
Yeah.
And
So
she's starting to feel a lot better. Go ahead.
yeah, thyroid hormone is responsible for so many things, like how good you feel, whether you're feeling cold or hot. Are you burning your calories? Are you storing them? Are you retaining water? It's just so many things are controlled by it. So you absolutely have to have the proper levels.
You mentioned at the beginning that you are into biohacking, or you're in that space. I think you used maybe the vernacular you used. And I wanted to ask you, do you have a business in that arena?
I do not have a business, but it's a personal hobby, obviously. So speaking of biohacking, I present Alpha Brain and Theacrine.
Okay. Oh, so what does Alpha Brain have in it? Alpha GPC?
Does it have mushrooms in it?
It has. I actually took a picture so that I can read it to you guys, or maybe send it to you later. So it has one of the interesting features is it has this extract called huperzine A, 400 micrograms. So huperzine A is has an affinity to bind to nicotinic receptors. So it literally gives you similar focus how nicotine would. So without the ill effects of nicotine.
Does that also have, because you know nicotine also suppresses appetite? Does that also have like an appetite suppressant effect as well?
It acts on the same pathway, so I'm pretty sure it would be very similar. It also has the alpha GPC. Yes, it has that. Bacopa maneri, that's good for memory, so it improves memory. Huperzia serrata is basically huperzine, and it has this thing. It's kind of difficult to pronounce. Pterostilbene.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to pronounce that.
So that is interesting. That is what they call an AMPK activator. That's what activates the cell repairing mechanism throughout your body and in your brain. So it's telling your body it's time to repair, and it's basically kind of like the blend that they came up with. So it has the, see how it says on it fuel blend.
Yep.
So
Leucine.
yeah, yeah, and it also has like other things that are really good. So look at that top right there. So flow blend,
B6.
tyrosine, theanine, L-theanine. So L-theanine is what you get in your green tea and black tea. It makes you more focused without the ill effects of caffeine. So it literally acts as a buffer to caffeine. So this could work as a great pre-workout because you're just more engaged with your nervous system, and you can perform better and have more mind-muscle connection. And theacrine is very interesting motivational compound also. It has very slight affinity for the dopamine receptors. It's making you feel more focused and more like at peace with yourself, and also improves your motivation to do anything. So I have given it to friends who didn't want to go for a hike with me, and they would take 2 capsules, and throughout the hike they're like, wow, I feel so energized, I feel so strong, right? The reality is that they're just as strong as they were, but they're not reacting to the feeling of being tired and being annoyed at the repetitiveness of walking. So that can be used as a pre-workout.
What is like the most unique or strange supplement that you utilize either on a daily basis, or there's certain supplements that I have in the cupboard, but I don't utilize them on a daily basis, just when I feel like an appropriate time to take it is? Do you have you have some very unique things like that you take or utilize?
So here's one, astaxanthin. So astaxanthin, it's actually what gives salmon the red color or orange color, and it's an incredible antioxidant. So it's literally like a gel capsule like that, and it's it's just great for the brain. Like literally, you feel your brain super snappy when you take it. So I take this one every day, and you can look online, just type it in into like WebMD, and you will see how great this thing is for everything, just to being more functional. and again, it's what gives the salmon its orange color, but it also what gives like the shrimp and krill its color. So it's really good for you, and it's a good extract. So it's
Do you do? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Do you do things like that plant right there? There's a study in NASA where they took, plants like this. This is called a snake plant, a pothos, and there was another plant that didn't perform as well. And they put them in a controlled environment with several different types of toxins that are common in the air. And they measured the reduction over time of the toxins based upon the plant type. And that the snake plant performed very well and at reducing several different types of toxins, as well as outputting oxygen. So do you do biohacking on that realm too? So this is why I have one in my office, and I've got a pothos and this plant in my bedroom as well for helping with oxygen and reducing or improving air quality in my bedroom.
Yeah, for sure. I think you should like surround yourself with plants because as a human, we're naturally tuned in towards the plant, living matter, right? So, and it's giving you all kinds of signals, maybe even subconsciously to to feel better. Like there's this concept called forest bathing, where people go out in the forest and they breathe in all of the tree bark and the moss that's everywhere, and that improves your mood and centers you. So it's kind of like a meditative activity. So forest bathing, it's a thing. Yeah.
Have you seen some of the stuff in testosterone, like sunning your butthole or putting ice packs basically on your balls to actually increase testosterone and that kind of stuff? Because the ice pack one does.
Jack's not allowed to go up any higher. He's not going to be allowed to go to the doctor anymore.
So I think it's an urban legend that it actually does anything. I would say
the ice one does. I've had buddies test it.
Don't microwave your balls and you'll be fine.
Yes.
I keep my balls alone.
Now speaking of cold packs, and you guys are loving the gym, so you should try it. So get those gel packs that are palm size, and take them with you cold to the gym. Do your set, and then put your palms on top of the cooling pads for like 30 seconds. You will be able to perform better and stronger because your palms will give out a lot of heat and energy, and it has a lot of smaller blood vessels that will cool off your blood by like half a degree, maybe a quarter a degree, but it will matter enough for your ability to restore glycogen in your muscles quicker, and you will feel overall stronger. So especially when you do HIIT or high intensity interval training, and if you want to perform better and faster, that is one way to biohack your way into better performance. So just gel packs for your palms.
That's interesting. I thought you were going to say taking them on your balls.
Put it in your pants. I thought you were going to go down the pants too.
Stuff them up your butt, right?
Yeah, put a bowling ball up your butt before you go to the gym. No,
yeah. So one other supplement for the gym is this type of magnesium. So this magnesium formulation lets the magnesium go into your brain without being digested by your body and excreted. So it actually will cross the blood-brain barrier faster.
And magnesium is responsible for a boatload of things in the body. Like
mostly the mind-body connection. Like you're doing a heavy squat and you're disengaging from your muscles, right? So you want to be absolutely focused, right? And that actually will give you a more effective workout when you engage with all of the muscle fibers out there.
Do you? This will be the last question here, and then we can wrap things up. Do you use those for your pre-workout?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And is there anything else you incorporate in there?
Yeah. So there's one other compound. It's a precursor to L-carnitine, and I actually forget what it's called, but it tastes sour, like as if it's as if you're eating a sour fruit. and it's L-citrulline.
Yes.
So,
Awesome.
you absolutely want it for your pre-workout and your recovery. And what that does, that relaxes your arteries and will allow for NO2, which is the nitric acid or nitric oxide acid. I forget. I
Oxide.
think, yeah, it's one of those things. NO2, and that something that you can actually measure. You can buy a little stick that you put in your mouth, and then it changes color by interacting with your saliva. If it turns pink, bright pink, it means that your NO is at the optimal level, and basically you're oxygenating your muscles, you're recovering faster. So L-citrulline is a precursor to L-carnitine, I believe, or I think I read somewhere, and
Yeah,
it's definitely part of my stack before going to workout.
Gym Bros, like, so I have it in one of my pre-workouts, but it's L-citrulline, and then there's I don't remember what the change is, but then there's L-citrulline malate, and
Yeah,
there's probably a little bit of a study or something that kind of insinuated there's higher bioavailability with the malate or L-citrulline malate or something, but awesome for a pre-workout. Have you ever tried sodium?
Yeah, I accidentally ingested half a teaspoon of sodium, and it almost made me throw up. I literally just chased it with water, and that was the stupidest thing that I have ever done.
Have you ever tried like doing it maybe with mixed with water, but like a larger quantity of water or something? I love
so
like 1 gram of sodium, like pre-workout. It
so
feels
this is
awesome.
what I do. So I take electrolyte mixture, which has sodium in it, and it has potassium and magnesium and various other things that you actually need for the proper muscle signaling, and it has sodium in it. So yeah, I mean, like, and sodium is part of the electrolyte family too. It makes your nervous system actually to function better. And the other thing that people don't know is that when you have sodium in your blood, you have higher intercellular pressure that makes your cells actually grow thicker cell walls, and your muscles literally will end up growing bigger and faster when you have that pressure on the cell walls.
almost keep them inflated so they're more inflatable too. Like,
Yeah. There's more pressure, so the cells react by saying, okay, I can't survive in this environment by being weak. I need to get stronger faster. So that's why, like,
sometimes after people get off steroids, they still have a bigger frame than they did before, a little bit, even if they went 100% off and got their hormone panel back to where it was, because their body actually experienced the stretching / cellular division or whatever. I can't remember the word they use in the bodybuilding world. I haven't looked it up in a while, but it's funny to know that, like, with the same hormone profile, some guys actually have more size because their muscles have already gotten to that point.
yeah, I mean, it's easier to grow. I mean, like, at least when it comes to the bones, right? So it's very difficult to consume your bones and make them smaller. I mean, they may end up being less dense, but size-wise, they will remain the same.
And estrogen is, we were talking about estrogen briefly, but estrogen is, very responsible for a lot related to your bones.
And
Like,
sex.
Yeah. So speaking of bones, this is the last thing I'll be showing. D3K2.
Yes, because that's awesome. K2. Go ahead and talk about that. But K2 helps with the
Yeah. So what this is, you can see the formulation is just oil, and it has K2 that allows for D3 to be more absorbed. It also has omega-3s, which is great for you. So MCT oil, and specifically for bone health, it lets the bones actually absorb the nutrients they need to be stronger. So anything that's calcium. So if you take calcium by itself, it's not going to get absorbed. It actually has a higher, your body has a higher chance to accumulate calcium in your arteries than in your bones if you take calcium straight. So if you eat cottage cheese and then take vitamin D3, that sort of combination will make your bones stronger than having it separate.
Do you do? I do a lot of. I'll just go. I live in Florida, so I try to spend at least some amount of time, even if it's 15 minutes a day, outside in the actual sun. because like there's other benefit, obviously vitamin D, right? But there's other benefits related to just being in the sun. Or you mentioned the like the forest breathing thing, and
forest bathing.
there's plenty of like research around that realm where it's got a calming effect, the meditative effect, which then lowers cortisol and all these other things. So I love to spend just a little bit of time outside every single day. Do you try to do that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, so I spend a lot of time in Hawaii and California, so I'm exposed to sun all the time. So I wake up at dawn and I immediately get exposed to blue light as the sun comes out. And that gives your brain ability to set your circadian rhythms properly so that you're actually a lot more alert and more functional. So blue light has this effect on the pituitary gland and other places in your brain to give you a signal that it's time to be active. So it's much better to be an early riser than not. Just by the fact that fact alone is that you want to maximize your visual cortex exposure to blue light frequency specifically.
Have you got to like red light? Right? I haven't dove into the research, but some of my friends have gotten really into switching out their bedroom and other lights in the house so that the profile is red throughout their house in the evening, right? Going with the smart lights where they can change them out, and at a certain time it switches over to red lights to help with that kind of shit. Do you do stuff like that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I do prefer obviously yellow light and red light versus the blue light when I'm indoors, because generally, if I'm indoors, there's nothing to do outside. It's probably dark, so you don't want to confuse your body into thinking that it's daylight when it's not the daylight. So, and actually, there been a study that people who expose themselves to red and yellow light in the evening sleep better because it's an ancient signal to the mind that it's time to go to bed. So you will end up stimulating more natural melatonin production just by being exposed to low Kelvin lights. So not high Kelvin, that's blue, but like under 5,000, which is low Kelvin.
Jack. This conversation has been awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed this. We didn't even get to talk about peptides.
We don't get too much of this anymore, Jack. This used to be our general conversations, and now 100 days ago we just jumped full head first into the crypto world, and it's been a wild ride. But I mean, I see so many depressed people with millions and millions of dollars that I just can't stop talking about this kind of stuff, and it has less to do with staying alive long for me, but more to do with helping some of these guys understand that enjoying life is but subtraction rather than addition in a lot of ways. Like I've subtracted more from my life than I have added. I've added hard work and like a passion for work, but basically I just subtracted a lot of those dopaminergic like things that I used to chase in order to self-regulate myself enough. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm enjoying myself. When I'm drinking my coffee, I'm enjoying it rather than just having it be another, day. And my last thing that I'm going to say before I go is there's a lot of medications that people take, right? Some of them are more so like antidepressant medication that lasts longer and takes longer to get into your system. And then some are like the more direct dopaminergic effects of Adderall, amphetamines, and then they're even bupropion, Wellbutrin. Drugs like that, they're prescribed daily. And I am not a doctor, okay? I'm a gym rat. So if you listen to me, you're dumb. But if you take drugs like this every day, your receptor sensitivity will decrease every single day.
Yeah.
Therefore, if you are going to utilize some of these substances, you have to give your brain breaks. I don't care what your doctor says. They don't care about you. So just remember, I was on those drugs for years and years and years, and I actually had to go to a rehabilitation center in order to get myself off the drugs that I was prescribed from the doctors. And I still deal with some of the effects of that today, like the medicines that I was taking as a youth, because I didn't have much of a choice when I was a youth. I was just going to the principal's office and they were shoving pills in my mouth.
There you go.
Yeah, literally. Like every time it was just like, so just remember, guys, dosage and frequency. I know people play around with drugs like this, but if you overstimulate your brain, you will have negative downstream effects of your receptor activity, and you will no longer feel the happiness that you were homeostatically feeling, in your life. It's a compounding effect. And that's something that it took me many years to learn. And that was probably some of the best information that I did learn was about the dopamine system and hedonistic activities and staying away from them in order to stimulate my creativity and my work ethic more.
Yeah, the recovery is always longer when you overstimulate your receptors. The ability for your mind or your body receptors to recover will usually take twice as long, if not like 10 times as long.
Yes.
There's like a J curve because it's how I think about it. Like this is where homeostasis is. You came all the way down here, and then you have to like come all the way back up. So it's like this J type of curve, and you get like a super compensation.
And usually it's a much longer time to suffer as you recover, right? So that's why like the withdrawal effects of anything. So I recently stopped drinking coffee with that's caffeinated. I'm drinking decaf.
God mode.
And the first 4 days, I felt like I was getting off heroin, even though I never took heroin, so I wouldn't know. But I felt
what was that word you said?
Heroin.
Oh, heroin. Okay.
Yeah. So I thought it was like some sort of like really bad drug leaving my system. I just felt tired. I would wake up with a headache. I'm like, holy crap, this thing, just 3 cups of coffee in the morning. That's what I would do pretty much every day. But it took me like 4 or 5 days to feel myself again. And now switching to decaf, it improved my sleep. I'm thinking clearer. My mental energy is more even throughout the day. And then I got more into science of it, and I realized that when you stimulate your caffeine is an adenosine receptor blocker. So your body produces adenosine in response to you being tired, right? And your brain receptors, the adenosine receptors, are signaling to yourself that you need to slow down. So when you have coffee in your blood or caffeine in your blood, what will happen is that you have all of the signals that are naturally coming from your body, but your brain is not feeling it, and you're overdriving yourself. And eventually, when the caffeine leaves your body, you just crash, right? But the other thing that happens that is fascinating, so to maintain the equilibrium, the opposite effect of sensitivity happens. Your adenosine receptors become more dense, so your brain literally overproduces them. And then when you stop having coffee or caffeinated coffee, even a little amount of adenosine binds to all of those new receptors, and you just cannot function. So you become more sensitive to your natural body production of adenosine because you're always expecting to have caffeine to plug them.
I hate it.
So decaf though has like a very small amount. Is it like right?
It's literally like 5% of caffeine that you would otherwise have in the regular cup of coffee. So regular cup of coffee will have like 50 or 60 milligrams, and the decaf will have like 3 to 5 milligrams.
Okay, that's fascinating. Yeah. I've gone through that similar where at one point I've taken over a gram of caffeine in a day, which is not an intelligent thing to do, but just testing this thing out, it's just not a good idea. And I've been enjoyed caffeine for a long time. And I've been over the last couple of years, I've drastically cut that down.
So here's the thing. You're thinking you're enjoying caffeine. In reality, you may actually be enjoying polyphenols in the coffee itself.
Synthetic. So it's not even. I'm not even getting the polyphenols. I'm using synthetic caffeine.
Let's stop before I go. Come on, I gotta do this show tomorrow. I'm going to freak out. Okay. I'm drinking my caffeine right now. I'm getting paranoid. No, I'm kidding. No, but he's 100% right. Just like I was bringing up about the Adderall and everything like this, it's the same thing. It goes with any central nervous system stimulant to a degree, right? It is a central nervous system stimulant, and that's literally what it is. It's stimulating your central nervous system, and it's going to have an effect which your body would have had sustainably over a larger amount of period of time within a shorter time frame of time, and you're going to catch the lagging indicator of that every single time. Yeah. Like it, and caffeine is dangerous because it's one of those things that they sell at the store, right? So like your parents be like, oh, he's drinking 3 caffeine drinks a day, that's no biggie. you know, but if he's drinking a couple beers a day, that's no biggie. But there's big differences between all these substances. And it's very important to understand that just because it's sold at a store means nothing about its safety profile. Zero. But we got to stop at some point.
We'll wrap up. We have questions here that.
Oh, no, we do.
No, we'll save those. We'll have to save those because I actually have a run too. This has been awesome though, and if you want to come back on and do this again, I would love to. Hopefully, GRC would love that as well. And we should save these questions. I'll take a screenshot of them so we can.
The chat was electric today, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Richard was streaming or like premiering some video with that XRP dork. I call him a dork because he likes XRP, but so go over there and check his video out. That's what I'm going to do after this. I want to see what that video is all about. Jack, thank you so much for being on here. Getting to talk about something that is not crypto related is almost a breath of fresh air because I love crypto. Don't get me wrong. And I like technical things in general. And this is one of the other technical things that I love to think about because it has so much use case in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me over. Super fun. And let me know if you want me to come back at some point.
Yes, let's do it again, and we'll talk about peptides, guys.
Yes.
Crypto in the evening, guys. I'm going to run the little promo for the GRC, and then I'm going to run the outro song, guys. Have a great day. Everyone smash the like if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button. I'm here every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern, guys, and sometimes at 6 p.m., guys. Have a great day.